Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And I continue with Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father, Blind. I was about to leave.
I'm going out.
To head for a lecture about African religions.
It looks like the lecture is just starting. Gabriel decides to record the session.
Voodoo is the tribal religion of Africa, but the name Voodoo is actually a banner heading under which resides an entire body of distinct tribal belief systems. The word voodoo may sound familiar to you. What is known in the States as voodoo is actually an amalgamation of African religious systems, voodoo, and European religions, primarily Catholicism. All of the subcults of African voodoo have certain things in common. The most important is the worship of a pantheon of spirits instead of the single deity that the Christian and Muslim systems have. Some of these spirits are elementals. Some relate to specific tasks or places. Some represent important tribal leaders who have died. This spirit worship is what makes voodoo so easily adaptable. With all those spirits, it's no problem to add a few more. Say, for example, the Virgin Mary. At the height of tribal Africa, warfare was common. The one tribe would conquer another, and the Loa, important in the conqueror's tribal system, would be adopted readily into the conquered tribe's Loa pantheon. In this way, many of the voodoo cults spread and mingled throughout tribal Africa, enriching the belief system and causing innumerable offshoots. The basis for the voodoo religion seems to be as old as man himself. It has much in common with many early pagan practices: animal totems, sympathetic magic, elemental spirits in the trees, the heavens, the bodies of the sick. Africa is believed by many to be the cradle of the human race. Some of the voodoo Loa may be as old as the Garden of Eden itself. We still can't explain some of the real power of these primal religions. And note, I said primal, not primitive. There are African Bokors who baffle our scientists with their supernatural powers. Now, let's discuss the elements of voodoo.
Fascinating guy.
In voodoo, the spirits are called the Loa. During a voodoo ceremony, celebrants are possessed by the Loa. And this is called being ridden. The human worshiper is seen as a horse, and the Loa as the divine horseman. A person being ridden by a Loa takes on the characteristics of that spirit and becomes, in effect, merely a vessel for the more powerful entity. Some of the older original Africa Loa include Dambala, the great serpent god; Hezruli, the mistress of love; Papa Nebo, or Gede, the lord of death; Agwe, the spirit of water; Legba, spirit of the crossroads; and the cruelest and most dangerous, Ogun Badagri, the lord of destruction.
I gotta get more sleep at night.
Tribe-specific Loa can have as much or more power as the more widely worshipped Loa. For instance, a particular tribe might revere highly the Loa of an ancestor who was a legendary hunter or politician. Voodoo temples are called Hounfors. Their priests, Hungan or Bokors. Their priestesses, Mama Loa. In a voodoo Hounfor, there's a ritual circle marked by a center pole called a poto mitan. The ritual circle is prepared with a veve, a pattern of symbols. Each tribe's veve is slightly different, consisting of complex symbols that identify their special Loa. During ritual conclaves, initiates dance under the supervision of a Bokor and a Mama Loa, or head priestess. The use of totems or animal masks and markings was not uncommon in the original African ceremonies. Now, though, all but the oldest sects have abandoned this practice. Ritual objects used during the conclaves include the ritual gourd or asson, the ritual knife or kubasa,
That knife gives me the chills.
the ritual whip or fouet cache, and the ritual coffin or seke madule. These items are often optional, called for by the Mamaloa for specific magical rituals. The Mamaloa is the most powerful figure in any Voodoo sect. Voodoo is a truly matriarchal system. Even the Bokor knows his power is limited. The Mamaloa is the supreme woman. She butterflies, fireflies.
Firelight. No, what is it? Gabriel?
What? I can't see.
Gabriel, get in.
Can't. It's too small for me.
You must get in, Gabriel.
It's not mine. Too small.
Hide, Gabriel, hide.
No, let me out. Help.
Young man, the lecture is over.
Oh my God, sorry.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, the protagonist is an asshole. He's spent the entire lecture. I don't know if those were his thoughts. I really hope so. I really hope he didn't say that out loud. But commenting on how boring it is, and then he fell asleep in the middle of it. That's pretty disrespectful, especially because I think it was actually not boring. It was pretty interesting. Because, first of all, it told me about how the priestesses are actually more important than the priests. But also, Gede, the Lord of Destruction, or Lord of Death, I think. What's her name? Malia Gede? Like, come on, there has to be a connection there. Especially with her being interested in the murders. Lord of Death, murders. Has to be a connection. And fouet cache is the ritualistic whip that they use for the rituals, which is something that was written on Marie Laveau's tomb to bring the fouet cache. So, yeah, that's definitely something.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Greek night at the Alpha Psi Omega frat house. It looks like it took place sometime last spring. The seats are the fold-down kind. There's a PA speaker on the wall. Gabriel's in one of the lecture halls at Tulane University. A projection screen dominates the front of the hall.
But also, I wonder if I can ask the professor about the pattern, for example. I will try that.
Are you a student?
No. My name is Knight. Gabriel Knight.
Well, you have walked into my private office, Mr. Knight. I hope you have something worthwhile to do here. If you figure it out, let me know.
The door leads back to the lecture hall. An old globe sits atop Hartridge's file cabinet. An old globe. Dr. Hartridge's office is crowded with masks, carved figures, and strange objects. It's Hartridge's file cabinet. The carved stone head looks African and very old. That mask is quite hideous. The squatter grins maliciously at Gabriel. It's an enormous stone head. Dr. Hartridge, exotic fish lend even more color to the cluttered office. Dr. Hartridge's desk is remarkably neat, especially considering the rest of the room. Dr. Hartridge is sharp-eyed and even sharper-tongued. When he condescends to look at Gabriel et al., it's with a dismissive glare.
Your lecture was terrific.
Oh, you think so? You were snoring so loud I didn't think you'd heard it.
You must travel a lot.
Yes, to Africa, mainly.
I suppose having all this voodoo stuff sitting around doesn't make you nervous at all.
It's voodoo stuff, and no. Why should it?
I'm very interested in voodoo myself right now.
How nice for you.
Hey, you've got quite a collection of goodies here.
My travels have been rewarding, yes.
Your lecture was terrific. Mind if I pick your brain?
Not if it will get you out of my office.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
You already sat through my lecture on the subject, Mr. Knight. Perhaps next time you could stay awake and learn something.
Yeah, fair enough. I am actually entirely on this guy's side. I would be pretty annoyed if someone came to my lecture just to take a nap in the middle of it.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
I've read about them in the papers. I must admit to some interest. But according to the newspapers, the voodoo aspect is faked, so I haven't really pursued it. You know how Americans, especially Hollywood, treats voodoo. I'm sure there are many so-called practitioners out there that have no idea what they're doing or the power they're playing with.
Although it's interesting to me again that he seems to think it's real. Like, how relevant even was that in like the 90s? Like, were there really like a bunch of people walking around New Orleans who literally believed in, magic rituals and altering reality with magic symbols? Like, that seems... And he's an academic on top of that.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
As I said, I don't know anything but what the papers say. According to them, there's no reason for me to be interested.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
I find it interesting to see the occasional fragment of voodoo practices in the everyday culture of New Orleans.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
The Catholic Church has always dominated in New Orleans, and its imagery, in turn, has dominated New Orleans voodoo.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
If there's more you wish to know, perhaps you should read my books.
Do you know anything about snakes?
I'm not a zoologist, Mr. Knight, but I know all I care to about reptiles.
Do you know anything about snakes?
I'm not a zoologist, Mr. Knight.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
It's June 23rd, the feast day of St. John the Baptist. But June 23rd has been a sacred day since the earliest times. Ancient sun worshippers used to roll a flaming wheel down a hill to celebrate the sun's descent on that day.
A burning wheel? Huh.
Ah, right, because it's the summer solstice, right? And it's in like 3 days in-game?
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I'm not in the habit of repeating myself, Mr. Knight.
Do you have any idea what Cabri sans Coeur means?
Cabri sans Coeur. Yes, I do. It's a Haitian term, I believe. It's French, and literally translates as goat without horns.
As in a female goat?
No, as in a human sacrifice. Sacrifices in voodoo are usually of the animal variety. Chickens, wolves, goats. If the gods demand a goat without horns, it means a human being.
Oh. Okay. So that's a similar kind of slang as the long pig which is supposedly what some cannibals call human meat. It's like a euphemism for human, likening it to another animal.
What was that translation for Capri Saint-Corps again?
I'm not in the habit of repeating myself, Mr. Knight.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
While I find the colloquial bastardizations of voodoo somewhat interesting from a sheerly intellectual point of view, there's not a lot of relation between people like Laveau and true voodoo practices.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
I'm not in the habit of repeating myself.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
As I said in my lecture, which I assume you actually listened to, is that animal masks, totems, are used extensively in most African voodoo religions.
Tell me about Veves.
If you'd taken notes during my lecture, you wouldn't have to ask.
Have you ever heard of a Schattenjäger?
I'm afraid I can't help you there, Mr. Knight.
Tell me about yourself.
All right, Mr. Knight, I'm 35, a fully tenured professor at this university, as well as a fellow at Cambridge. My doctorate was obtained at Syracuse. Yes, Syracuse, in religious studies. I'm an agnostic, but I find human belief systems fascinating. I specialize in African religions because I grew up there. My father was a Protestant missionary. And I am heterosexual, when I practice sex at all, which isn't very often. Any other questions?
No.
Fine.
Wait, 35 is awfully young for a professor, isn't it? At least here. Because you would be what? 22, 23 for a master's degree, then like another 3 or 4 years for your doctorate. So that's already, what, 26, 27? And then you... I don't know the English terms for that, but after you get your PhD, you need to get habilitated? Is that a verb in English? Like 35 for a professor? That's awfully young to me.
Tell me more about human sacrifice.
It's very rare. Most voodoo practices do not include human sacrifice as a matter of record, but it is theoretically possible if that's what the gods demand. For example, one of the chants I had translated for me from a Haitian ritual went like this. Mistress Azuli, come and aid us. If a cock is demanded, we will give it. If a bull will suffice, behold it. But if a goat without horns is required for sacrifice, oh, where will we find one? Azuli is the gentlest of Loa, so they call on her for mercy. But I have seen grown and powerful Hungan tremble before a possession by one of the more violent Loa, such as Papa Nebo. Clearly, they are afraid that something of the sort will be ordered, or that the Loa will simply take it for themselves.
Now, I have to comment, at least very briefly, on St. John's Eve, because that's something, it has totally sort of escaped my mind because of the language difference. I haven't connected the dots. But obviously, it is, as I said, summer solstice, a very important holiday in a lot of religions, including in, pre-Christian, pagan, Slavic religions, where Noc Świętojańska nowadays, or Noc Kupały, Kupala's night, there were a lot of traditions sort of concerned with that night, specifically even also in the lands that would later become Poland, and more broadly in sort of the Slavic region. So, for example, things like lighting fires and making like wreaths, like specifically that's something that people do sort of for fun even nowadays, is making wreaths on St. John's Eve, and like young girls are putting them in water, like in rivers and stuff, and if some guy picks them up later downstream, that's sort of implicates sort of like a romantic connection, or that girl is soon to be married. So I totally didn't like sort of think about it because I guess mostly because of the language difference, and because of the fact that I mostly play in the evenings, so I'm already pretty fried, and my brain isn't always working sort of entirely correctly. But obviously, as I said, summer solstice, pretty important in a lot of religions and cultures. So let's give him this.
Can you tell me anything about this pattern?
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Mind if I copy this?
Be my guest.
Great. I'll be right back. Here you go. You know, this is a fascinating veve. You must tell me all about its origin.
Actually, I was hoping you'd tell me. Can you figure out anything about it from the symbols?
Well, some. That's why I wanted a copy. I want to research the design myself. Each of the symbols in the veve represents something, a loa, a place. Where did you get this?
Have you heard of the voodoo murders?
No, you're kidding. Really? Then the voodoo is authentic. The newspapers are wrong. Boy, are they wrong.
You think this veve is authentic, then?
Authentic? Mr. Knight, that's like asking if the Mona Lisa is a painting. Tell you what, I'll look into these symbols myself and see what I can learn about the sect that made this. I'll give you a call when I have more information. You are associated with the police, aren't you?
Absolutely. But I'm, undercover. You can contact me at the St. George's bookshop in the quarter.
All right. Now, I'd like to get started on this if you don't mind.
Sure, but also maybe you would actually learn something from this with regards to the whole human sacrifice angle.
Is there anything you can tell me about the voodoo aspects of this photograph?
This is serious voodoo ritual. Nasty stuff.
In what way?
Let's see. I can't make out much detail from this photograph. Except for the corpse, of course. But the wound, the face, and what little I can see of the ritual paraphernalia. Reminds me of certain black voodoo practices. Very rare. I've never witnessed them myself, you understand.
Really? Interesting. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's it.
I'll see you later.
Good day, Mr. Knight.
Now, I am pretty sure that getting into Kazoo's house has something to do with looking like a priest, but I can't put this on.
There's no reason to wear that at the moment.
So perhaps I'm still missing some religious paraphernalia, like, I don't know, like crucifix or something, or this, I don't know the English terms, but like the sash that the priests wear, or something. Maybe there are more things to pick up from the closet here.
There's a box of white priest's collars in the closet.
Oh, of course, I'm missing that then, in that case.
Well, you never know when a priest's collar will come in handy.
The closet shelves are stacked with the odds and ends of a saintly life. In other words, nothing Gabriel is familiar with. Nothing on that. Gabriel cannot see himself wearing a long robe. The crucifix might come in handy, but Gabriel does not feel guilt-free enough to wield it. Gabriel doesn't want to do anything to that picture.
Okay, so is it already combined with the color?
Gabriel is carrying a priest's shirt and collar which, surprise, surprise, do not belong to him. There's no reason.
So wait, so what else am I missing? Because that's literally the only thing I can even think of doing at this point.
In other words,
Public.
this green candles. Could that mean something?
Probably not.
Appropriately sacred books are laid out on the table. Gabriel isn't interested in those books. The mirror, Gabriel, the the door. Gabriel cannot go in there. That's the priest part of the confessionals.
I will go to the confessional, just because I might learn something there or find something there. That's useful.
The confessional is about the size of a closet and is richly paneled in lovingly oiled cherry.
May I help you, my child?
Could you give me a blessing?
Do you feel the need for a blessing, son?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
All right, if it will comfort you.
The priest blesses Gabriel through the confessional window.
Peace be with you, son.
Thank you, Father.
A meshed window provides access to the confessional from the priest's booth. It's a cushion kneeler. The confessional is empty, and there does not seem to be a priest behind the window right. A meshed window. The confessional is empty. Gabriel cannot go in there. That's the priest part of the confessionals.
As if illegal things stopped him before. Like, that's a bit of a weird boundary to have after stealing a police officer's badge. Among other things.
All right, but this is private.
Yes? Who is it?
It's Father McLaughlin to see you.
Well, Father, you should be ashamed of yourself being so ill-groomed. I am sure the bishop would never approve. You can just go get a haircut before you come calling on me again. I know my duty, Father, but a priest seeking contributions should take pains to represent the church with respect.
Fair enough. I have some hair gel. Maybe that will help.
This is
The things I do for my art.
Yes? Who is it?
It's Father McLaughlin to see you.
I see you've taken my advice, Father. I didn't mean to be harsh, but the church is the church.
Well, when you're right, you're right.
Exactly. Come in, Father. Please be seated, Father.
Thank you.
Now, what?
Let's have a look around.
Madame seems to like candles. Gabriel wonders if these two are specialties of Mr. Walker's shop. It's a painting of a pretty young lady in old-fashioned clothes.
Madame, in younger days?
Good heavens, no, Father.
Madame's antiques are probably worth something. Madame finds comfort in these iconic images, it seems. Madame's parlor is full of carefully dusted and polished relics of her past. The sofa is velvet, and it is wearing nearly as much of Madame Casanou's face powder as Madame is herself. The painting behind the couch is a Madonna in child. An old table lamp with a fringed shade gives off what little light there is in the parlor. Madame's parlor is full of carefully dusted and polished relics. The folding screen has a colorful pattern. It looks oriental. The tea service has been polished recently. Madame uses it with her Creole sisters, perhaps? There's an old-fashioned jewelry box on the coffee table. Like all good hostesses, Madame has candy out for her guests. These appear to be several decades old.
Okay, that's actually kind of funny, because if I understand it correctly, this is a joke about etiquette where, you're expected to lay them out, and probably your guests are expected not to eat them, or at least not to eat too many of them. So, so she just had them out for literal decades at this point. That's kind of fun.
Madame's parlor is full of carefully dusted and polished relics. Madame Casanou looks fragile and pale under a thick layer of face powder. If Gabriel is not mistaken, she's a slice short of a loaf.
It's so nice of you to invite me in.
But no, mon père. I am always happy to see one of the good fathers.
Do you find the weather to your liking?
It's terribly humid. I only go out in the morning and evening.
Have you been attending Mass regularly, my child?
Oh, yes, Father. I attend Mass every morning. Many don't these days, you know.
You are dedicated, Madame. It's so nice of you to invite me in. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions, my child?
Of course not, mon père.
Tell me about yourself.
Me? I am Creole. My family has been in New Orleans for over 200 years. Real New Orleanians are French, you see. These days the city is overrun with people with no heritage at all. No offense, Father, but it's true. But the French, naturellement, will always be the true blood of New Orleans.
Tell me about yourself.
Well, Father, I don't know what else to say.
Most of those topics are such that I think they would make her angry or very suspicious. Because why would a priest ask her about voodoo? I probably will, just because usually in those games they want you to exhaust all of the options anyway. Such was the case with flirting with Gede, for example. Like, literally I needed to do that to progress the story, even though I didn't quite want to at first.
Do you have any idea what Cabri Sankar means?
Mais oui, I know. I bet you do not, Farah, n'est-ce pas?
It means goat without horns.
Oh, Father, you surprise me. You do know what it means. You know what they mean by goat without horns, don't you? A human being. That's right. Slit your throat, cut out your heart. Pure evil murder.
Okay, she was much more enthusiastic in talking about that murder subject than I would have given her credit for.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
The only true Orleanians are of French origin, you know. My family were among the original settlers of New Orleans. They came here from France. The Creole society used to be so gay in New Orleans. Now it barely hangs on by its fingernails.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
You know, I can stroll the streets of the French Quarter and see in my mind's eye the way it used to be. It was wonderful in the old days.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
New Orleans isn't what it used to be, I can tell you. There's too few of the real people left.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
New Orleans isn't what it used to be.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
St. John's Eve? Mais oui! I used to love the St. John's Eve Mass at Sandwick Cathedral. Of course, it is also a night of great wickedness, worse than All Hallows Eve. They will corrupt anything, Father.
They? They who?
Oh, you know.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I don't think I should say any more about that.
That Cabri Sankar thing.
Do not continue to tease me, Father. You know what it means as well as I.
Have you ever heard of a Schattenjäger?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
Okay, let's get more into those risky subjects.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Snakes? They're evil creatures. Did you know that evil people can send them into your dreams? They can. That's why I never sleep.
Right, thanks. Do you know anything about snakes?
It would be bad luck to talk about that anymore.
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
She was only a front for the real evildoers, Father. And that's the truth about Marie Laveau.
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
She was only a front.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
Do you know anything about veves?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
People think I'm just a foolish old woman, but I know the things they do. My family's been in New Orleans since 1750, so I know more than most. Voodoo people are all over this city, in the shops, everywhere. They'll curse you like that, and most people don't even notice. Spit on your bread at the bakery. Take strands of your hair at the store when you try on the clothes. You have to be so careful. But I know their ways, so I can protect myself. I know how to use the magic too, and I can counteract their evil spells.
Tell me more about voodoo in New Orleans.
It's just plain evil. It's dangerous to even discuss it.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
Voodoo murders? Ha! They are nothing new to me, father. They happen all the time. I hardly go out anymore. It's too dangerous in the streets. They can get you anywhere, you know. Even here in this room. But I try not to let them know about me. That's the best way.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
Shh. They'll hear you.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
Oh, yes, father. It is the wickedest kind. The kind they practice here in New Orleans.
Tell me more about black voodoo.
I already told you, black voodoo is what they practice here.
Do you know anything about human sacrifice here in New Orleans?
Well, my great-grandmother could tell stories. She saw it. People say that sort of thing wasn't done in New Orleans. But the real voodoo queens did it. Oh, yes.
Can you tell me anything else about human sacrifice?
What is there to tell? They cut your heart out.
Who were the real voodoo queens?
Well, my great-grandmother told me that Laveau was just a front, a flamboyant decoy. She distracted authorities from the real voodoo queen of New Orleans. It's been the same one for almost 200 years. She's head of a secret voodoo en fort. That's what they call their temples, you know. It's so secret, most of the voodoo people in the city don't even know about it. The real voodoo queen controlled Laveau, gave her a little bit of power, and used her like a puppet.
Is there anything else you remember about the real voodoo queen?
Well, my great-grandmother said that the real voodoo queen was the most beautiful woman on earth. She had the most incredible copper-colored skin.
Would that be Malia Gede, perhaps? Because, you know, she's dark-skinned, and he, the protagonist, Gabriel, has sort of alluded when he was flirting with her, to her being the most beautiful woman ever. And also, that is mainly my thing that raises my suspicions. Her name literally coincides with one of the most powerful Loa, so that can't be a coincidence, right?
Tell me more about this secret voodoo hound four.
Well, I've never seen it. I wouldn't go near it if you paid me. But it's here in Orleans, I guarantee it. I hear the drums at night, oh yes. That's why I am so ill. I tell you, those drums. But we shouldn't talk about it. They'll hear us. It's the devil's work that happens there. I can tell you. I'll show you something. Something secret. You mustn't tell anyone, father.
I swear on my collar.
Here it is, mon père. A true object of evil if there ever was one.
It radiates something, all right.
It belonged to my great-grandmother. She told my mother that it was a token to gain entrance to the real voodoo ceremonies.
You don't say.
To tell you the truth, I always felt nervous about having it in the house. You know, evil influence and all.
Oh, I can see how you would, yes.
And yet, I could never part with it. It's been in the family for generations. Would you bless it for me, father? I feel strange asking such a thing of you, but surely you understand.
Bless this bracelet of a snake, even though its vibes aren't great. Let it do nobody harm when they wear it on their arm. Voodoo spirits, go away. Don't come back another day. And now, let us pray.
Madame is the only... It's a bracelet in the shape of a snake.
Now,
I think that's enough, Father.
Oh, right. Here you go.
she said
Madame's jewelry box is for her use only.
that it's used to gain entry to, well,
Father
supposedly
McLaughlin would never steal.
supposedly to gain entrance to real voodoo ceremonies. So obviously that's pretty crucial, but I don't think I can get it. At least not now.
Do you mind if I ask you a few more questions, Madame?
If you wish, Father.
Can I see that snake bracelet again? I'm not sure the first blessing took, and I'd like to re-bless it.
All right. I do admire your thoroughness, Father.
Okay, so there has to be
Here's the bracelet, Father.
there has to be something
Bless this bracelet of a snake.
has to be something I can do with it. What do I have? Snake skin, hair gel.
This is There's no reason to make a clay impression of that.
Oh, impression. Okay, so maybe if I, although she would see that that's stupid. Like, I just hold it in my hand, slap clay all over it, and what? She wouldn't comment on that? But then I could make my own copy, right? If I had a mold. So, sure, let's try that.
Gabriel has a thought about the clay.
Bless, oh bless, this circlet of silver. Take the curse, oh take it, Wilbur.
A lovely blessing, mon père.
Yes, I think it made a lasting impression.
Here you go.
I feel so much better now.
Well, Madame, I must be going.
Of course, Father. I know how busy you must be tending your flock.
Well, he literally just walked through the wall. Now that's some devilry.
I'm not going back on the street looking like this.
Now, who could make me an impression? I guess I'll go to her.
Mr. Knight, how nice to see you.
My pleasure, I'm sure.
Please, be seated.
Does this mean anything to you?
These are magic symbols. Deep magic.
Really? Have you seen them before?
No?
Then how do you know they're magic symbols?
Seeker, my eyes are unveiled to see truly that which is in front of me.
Uh-huh. Thanks. Tons. Does this mean anything to you?
I can be of no help to you, Seeker.
Could I ask you a few questions?
Of course, Seeker.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
It is the oldest, darkest heart of voodoo.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
There are some things it is better not to know about, Monsieur Knight.
Do you know anything about Veves?
I don't know anything about that.
Do you have any idea what Caprice Saint Coeur means?
No. No, I don't.
Do you know anything about a secret voodoo Four?
There are many voodoo churches in New Orleans, no?
Yes, but have you heard of a secret? Do you know anything about a secret voodoo Four?
I told you, I don't think that's worth discussing.
Well, I guess I'll be gone now.
Do what you will, if it harm none.
Count on it. Hey, Grace. Here I am.
Oh, boy. Party time.
Okay, I'll have to think about who could make me a casting of the bracelet, but I'll do it next time because this episode has been long enough. So I'm going to save and end it for now. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.